Watch, look who Wacky Woopie says created Antifa. Whoopi Goldberg said this week on The View that she wasn't sure who created the mob of thugs generally referred to as Antifa, but was pretty certain that someone on the right was behind it as a false flag operation against the left. This is what insane looks like. On Friday's episode of The View, Goldberg decided to tackle the militant group's origin. The Harridans on The View are generally easy to mock, of course, but Goldberg's comments are being especially ridiculed because she took her ignorance on the group and created her own version of the truth that really doesn't make any sense. According to Newsbusters, the comments came during the, quote, Hot Topics segment of the show where the hosts talked about the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia last month. Host Paula Faris was the first to broach the subject of Antifa after a discussion was introduced on President Donald Trump's statements, blaming the violence on many sides. Antifa isn't anti-fascism. For anybody that thinks that is a non-violent group, they're predicated on violence. In fact, the Department of Homeland Security, according to documents, Faris began to say before she was cut off by Goldberg. I saw your thing. Let me say this to you. Well, I'm not going to read it because we can see what she's saying. Just take a quick look because they're just going to repeat what is being said right here.
Antifa, it's anti-fascism, and for anybody that thinks that this is a not violent group, I mean, they're predicated on violence. And in fact, the Department of Homeland Security, according to documents,
I saw your thing, and let me just say this to you. When we looked to see what they were talking about, there was nothing there. Because when you look at the bottom of your list, the year that they're talking about is when Obama was in. So we went to see what they had been protesting, what fascist stuff Antifa had been protesting. And there isn't anyone. There's nothing there. We can't find anything. So this, to me, Antifa is one of those things that, I don't want to say the right, but somebody came up with as a catchphrase so that you could say, you know, oh, there is violence on the other side. But I don't remember violent demonstrations before the gentleman who's in now got in.
Well, that's the issue. I just want to say, because I didn't get to finish the point about the anti-fascism.
I cut you off.
No, it's all right though. I get it, and that's totally fine. But according to confidential government documents, they were labeled a, quote, domestic terrorist group. Antifa was. The Department of Homeland Security started warning local and state officials about them back in 2016. When we were at the inauguration covering it for ABC, we took a quick break, got a quick bite in DC, and Antifa started storming the streets. I was frightened. We had to lock the restaurant we were in because they were knocking people over, they were burning things, they were attacking police. Yeah, but they weren't, and they were throwing things at the window, breaking the windows.
When did you first hear that phrase?
I actually just started hearing about Antifa a couple of months ago, even though they've been
I think that's
domestic terror.
I had never heard of it. My understanding is that it doesn't have a leader, it doesn't have a headquarters. It's not an organized group. And I do not think that you can compare this Antifa movement with the KKK.
No, you can't.
You can't do this subtle scare.
And
the
that's
subtle scare is what that phrase is. That's what I wanted to see, because I've never heard of this.
I hadn't either.
You know, and people kept saying, well, you know, on television, particularly on the other networks, you know, well, this group, and I kept saying, well, who is this group? Because when you see how stuff is organized, you could say, yes, that's who we are, we're fighting for this. But oftentimes, I've found that sometimes the side that is fetching the loudest has sort of orchestrated this so they can bitch about it. So I'm not sure who was storming through the streets. I'm not sure who was storming through the streets.
Well, and the other thing is, my fear is that this term Antifa, they're trying to use it to scare people so that they don't stand up against hate. When is it wrong to stand up against hate? It is never, ever wrong.
Well, and that's they're using violence.
Well, you can't. No one supports violence and radicalism in your struggle against hate, you've got to stand up against it.
Isn't their basic tactic to be equally violent because they're fighting violence with violence?
You hear this? You hear this? According to the liberals on The View, Antifa was created by the right so that they could blame violence on the left, and that President Trump is also party to this violence, and yet no one can just admit that. Yes, there are some extreme leftists who use violence as a mean of protesting. The left is seriously so caught up with evading fault for anything, and we are getting really tired of this blame game. One of these days, maybe they'll even get tired of it too. And not only that, who was the one that started this? They didn't talk about George Soros paying people and putting ads on Google, Craigslist, excuse me, to hire these people to cause violence. Are you kidding me? You know, and people actually watch these morons that are peddling all this garbage, actually. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.